reporting for TTN HD Production Live, here with actor Basil Hoffman, who's been in the business many, many years, and recently you were the auctioneer and the artist. What was your favorite part about making that film?
Well, I'll tell you, there were a lot of favorite parts about the film. Getting the job was terrific. None of us knew, nobody knew what this film would turn out to be in terms of how it would turn out and the reception that it got. But my very favorite part of this picture was a telephone call that I got about a week or so ago. A friend of mine named William Blinn, who is a very prominent screenwriter, TV writer. He won the Paddy Chayefsky Award from the Writers Guild a couple of years ago. He created Starsky and Hutch and Eight Is Enough, wrote a lot of the episodes of Roots, a very well-known TV movie named Brian Song. He called me to tell me that he wanted me to know that he was probably the only person who had seen The Artist 6 times. So that was the best part about making The Artist, those phone calls. I've gotten phone calls and emails from people in Beirut, Lebanon, from Dubai, from Berlin, telling me how much they liked the picture.
What was it like being in a silent film as a different medium that you might be used to today?
Well, it really wasn't very different, Katie, from what I do as an actor and from what actors do. For people who will see the picture, the auction scene was an improvisation. So I got to sell the stuff, and I got to make up prices and make up the provenance of all the items, and I got to play an auctioneer for a day, and then we had another scene in which I speak to Jean Dujardin playing George Valentin at the end of the auction, and it was a fabulous experience. I've been very fortunate, and I'm so grateful to be in this picture, and the fact that it got 10 Academy Award nominations is just wonderful. You know that it won the Producers Guild Award for Best Picture, won the Directors Guild Award for Best Director, and Jean Dujardin got the Screen Actors Guild Award for Best Actor. So the picture has done very well, and I'm a happy guy to be in it, and to be getting all these people telling me that they've seen it.
What made you decide you wanted to be an actor many years ago?
I was in college, Tulane University, an economics major, and I was minding my own business, having a cup of coffee in the university center, and two girls I knew talked me into trying out for a play. And that really is how I began. And I had no interest in it. I said, why would I do that? Why would I even bother doing that? And they said, well, Basil, it's kind of social. It's a great way to meet girls. And I thought, well, hey, sounds right to me. So from now on, Katie, anytime you hear an actor say he became an actor to meet girls, it's probably the truth.
Okay. And what advice would you give to an actor coming up?
Well, I would say learn your craft. Really learn the craft. If you decide to pursue your career, there really are only two places where you can do that in the United States. Finally, New York and Los Angeles, and ultimately Los Angeles if you want to do movies, because Los Angeles is the movie capital of the world. And people say, well, you know, they do movies in New Orleans, they do movies in Virginia, they do movies in a lot of places. Yeah, but you have to have your career start here. When you really decide that you are entering the business. I do advise actors, wherever they are, small towns, any place in the country, act as much as you can. Act in high school, act in college, do community theater, read for local commercials if you can. Get as much work, because ultimately you're going to have to make a decision to maybe give up a lifestyle to move to New York or Los Angeles to really pursue a career. And when you audition in New York and Los Angeles, you have to know, no matter where you are in the business, the chances are that some actor who's auditioning for that role, actor or actress who's auditioning for that role, may be the very best actor in the world at that age. And if they're not in Los Angeles or New York, where are they? So actors have to realize that the competition is tough, but you have to learn to love the business, love the craft, and pursue it and be persistent. And go after the people who will hire you. Don't be so interested in finding agents. Find the producers and the casting directors and the directors. Those are the people you really need to meet.
And you're staying very busy these days.
I am.
What do you have coming up next?
I have a picture that I've completed called Geezers, which is, it's like Animal House in a retirement home. And I'm the bad boy. I am really the bad boy. And there are a couple of wonderful actors who have cameos in it. Tim Allen has a cameo, and Scott Kahn has and you may know Scott Kahn from Hawaii Five-0. And I got to tell Scott that I did a picture with his dad in 1978. I did a picture with James Kahn called Comes a Horseman.
I understand you've written a book on acting.
Actually, I've written 2 books. In 1998, a friend of mine who's a publisher called me and asked me if I could write a book on auditioning for actors. And I said, well, maybe I could. So I wound up writing a book called Cold Reading and How to Be Good at It. So that book came out. It's very successful, still being sold. And a few years later, another friend of mine, who's also a publisher and who's also now my manager, called me and asked me if I had another book in me. And that turned out to be acting and how to be good at it. And I wrote the book, and in the book I mention a lot of people I've worked with, and some people I haven't worked with. But it's an acting book, and it's also a memoir about my experiences in the business, because in a lot of cases, my experiences have to do with things that I can illustrate certain points that I make about acting, and it's very helpful for people. And so I sent copies of the manuscript to Steven Spielberg, to Robert Redford, to Woody Allen, who I mentioned, who I had never worked with, but I wanted to be sure that Woody had a chance to look at it. I sent copies to everybody. And everybody saw to Ron Howard, who I did Night Shift with, and everybody said it was okay. There was no problem with what I'd written. And then one day I got a phone call from a lady, and she says, Basil Hoffman? I said, yeah. She said, Sidney Pollack on the line. And I said, okay. And Sidney gets on. He says, hi, Baz, how are you? I said, fine, Sidney. He says, I'm reading your manuscript. It's interesting. He says, I have a problem. I said, what is that, Sidney? He said, well, you quoted me. He said, I know that I said it. And he told me the page number. He said, I know that I said it, but when I read it, it sounds so bloody arrogant. And Sidney could have said, Basil, don't use it. But he said, can you say it differently? So I gave him a couple of options. He said, that's fine. And he said, what a classy guy,
Yeah.
because he could have said, don't use the quote. And then he said, I like what I've read so far. I'm going to finish the book. He says, and maybe I'll give you something you can use in the book. And he wrote the foreword. He said, he says, it's not going to be very long because I don't like to write. He said, but I'll give you, and it's the best 4 lines anybody ever wrote about me or about my book or anything else. And I was blessed. And then Sidney passed away after the first edition came out. So when I did the second edition, I had a chance to write a little tribute to Sidney. He was a sweet guy and a fabulous, fabulous director and a fabulous person.
What did you learn about yourself while writing these books?
Well, I learned that I knew much more about acting than I thought I knew. And I even say now that my book is a better actor than I am. And sometimes I read it to remind myself of stuff that I need to do. I think it's a wonderful, easy-to-read book about acting, and it's straight ahead. It's very, it's non-psychological. It's non-mechanical. It's just a book about the way actors act and the things actors need to think about. And it's very specific, and it's a worthwhile read. It's very successful. It's doing very well. It's available at a lot of bookstores. The big bookstores like Samuel French in Los Angeles and Drama Bookshop in New York has it. It's available on Amazon, and there's a huge book chain in Canada that loves my book, a book chain called Indigo Books. And I think every store has copies of my book. I don't know why it sells so well in Canada, but I'm grateful.
Is there somewhere online other than IMDb that we can check you out?
Yes, basilhoffman.com.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, Basil. It was lovely talking to you, and best of luck with The Artist and your upcoming project, Geezers.
Thanks, Katie. I appreciate it. Thank you.
I'm Katie Uhlmann reporting for TTN HD Production Live. like to add?
One more thing. I have something for you.
Oh.
Copy of my book, Acting and How to Be Good at It, the second edition, with a foreword by Sidney Pollack. And I signed it to you as a little note for you in the book. And Acting and How to Be Good at It, with a foreword by Sidney Pollack, second edition. And you can buy it on Amazon.com or at your local bookstore.
Wow.
How's that for a free plug?
Wonderful.
Wow.
Thank you so much, Basil. I really appreciate it.
It's a pleasure. And thank you, Katie. I've had a wonderful day.
Thank you. I'm Katie Uhlmann reporting for TTN HD Production Live. And make sure to get your copy of Basil Hoffman's acting book.
Thank you.